The political motivations of these two individuals is also self-evident, which gives rise to the clear accusation, proven accusation, that their motivations are illicit. They should have been disqualified from this case long ago.
Matthew Colangelo wrote this stupid motion. You literally came from Biden's office, Matt jerk. There's no evidence we're working for Biden. You literally left the DOJ like last year, a-hole.
Donald Trump uses the system against itself. And once it becomes clear that he's abusing the system for delay, to avoid facing courts, then I think the judges and prosecutors have to kick in and do, frankly, what they did in Manhattan.
The Donald Trump prosecutor known as Alvin Bragg, now facing a lawsuit from another state, Missouri. And the attorney general there, this guy called Andrew Bailey, is saying he is prepping and getting ready to launch a lawsuit against Bragg for interfering with American democracy. He says, listen, I will be filing a suit against the state of New York for a direct attack on our democratic process through unconstitutional lawfare against President Trump. Said it's time to restore the rule of law. He's going to be the one to do it. And we got a couple of clips of him explaining how this will work. Here is Mr. Andrew Bailey telling us about his new plan.
Trump, and then campaigned on a promise to prosecute President Trump. He is self-interested in this case because President Trump is a political opponent of the people that Alvin Bragg is backing. Same with Matthew Colangelo. This was a top official in Biden's Department of Justice that until recently was being paid by President Biden's administration and has now been deployed by the DOJ to assist Alvin Bragg and is now leading the prosecution of President Trump in Manhattan. Again, this is an individual, Matthew Colangelo, who is a longtime supporter of the DNC. And so the political motivations of these two individuals is also self-evident, which gives rise to the clear accusation, proven accusation, that their motivations are illicit. They should have been disqualified from this case long ago.
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed Matthew Colangelo. He gave the opening statement in New York, and he was the attorney who questioned Jeffrey McConney and Hope Hicks in the case so far, and he clearly has ties to the DOJ, left the number 3 spot at the DOJ. But I guess what I'm asking is, do you have any evidence that you think is going to be uncovered specifically in these emails that's going to lay out this link for people who listen to what you're saying right now and say, you know, he's just a Republican AG and he just, you know, wants to support Trump?
Yeah, look, these are reasonable inferences to draw from the facts. When you've got, again, Alvin Bragg, who's expressed a self-interest in the prosecution, illicit witch hunt prosecution of President Trump. You've got Matthew Colangelo, who was working for President Trump's political opponent. And again, the objective here is to obtain an illicit conviction of President Trump, but it's also to take President Trump off the campaign trail, something they're successfully doing. And so that's election interference. But I would also point out that there's a long history of the deep state in Washington, D.C. at the Department of Justice behaving in this manner. Remember Peter Strzok and Lisa Page in 2016? Remember how on the eve of President Trump's election, they were already concocting schemes and texting one another back and forth.
I mean, what's the likelihood that you're going to get any of these records turned over to you? I mean, is this an exercise that is going to lead to evidence?
Yeah, we're not going to let the Department of Justice stonewall us. The people deserve to understand the illicit motivation of the prosecutors themselves who are perpetrating this illicit witch hunt. We need to put that out there and have it be transparent. The judge should have disqualified those prosecutors, but if they fail to do so, then the public needs to understand. We need to talk about how we're going to hold the prosecutors responsible. Their professional licensure is on the line. I think there's civil liability. And certainly to the extent they broke the law to obtain these illegal convictions that they're seeking, then it's time to prosecute the prosecutors.
It is time to prosecute the prosecutors. We like that. I think that's a good idea. And that's Andrew Bailey from Missouri. All right, so this is Alvin Bragg. Now, Alvin Bragg wants the gag order over Trump to be continuing on. Trump has asked for the gag order to end because the gag order was, in theory, only meant to protect witnesses from harm, jurors from harm, court staff from harm. Nobody wanted to have people get injured as the trial was progressing. But the trial is over. And so now we don't have witnesses like Michael Cohen or Stormy Daniels who are going to be problematic. Why do we need the gag in place still? Trump said, it's over, lift the gag. Here's Alvin Bragg responding, saying, no, we need the gag to stay in place. So we'll just hit the highlights on this and see what the reaction sounds like. But the people oppose, this is Bragg, we oppose the motion to terminate the gag order. It says the court entered those orders to protect 3 categories from Trump's inflammatory public attacks. It says the appellate division agreed with these narrow restrictions that were appropriate to this made-up concept, the fair administration of justice in criminal cases, which means nothing. It means whatever you want it to mean. And to ensure that participants in the criminal proceeding remained free from threats, intimidation, harassment, and harm. And so the case is still ongoing, they say. And just 2 days ago, the Court of Appeals dismissed Trump's attempt to appeal from the appellate division. They said there's no substantial grounds or constitutional questions. And so Trump's demands that this court end this gag even before the sentencing is overstated and largely unfounded. They say, first of all, Trump ignores the narrowness of this order. Trump is only limited from certain things. Nothing prohibits him from broadly criticizing the verdict or the proceeding or Alvin Bragg or this court. Well, he can't talk about the judge's daughter and the fact that she's raised $93 million plus for Democrats, works for Joe Biden. Can't talk about that. They say Trump also engaged in a flood of criticisms before and after the verdict. And so he can comment on about a lot of this. He's already talked about Biden and his staff. But the purpose of this order was to protect the orderly administration of this court. Again, absolutely meaningless, whatever you want it to mean. Thus, the relevant question is not whether the orders prevent Trump from speaking, they never have, but whether it's narrowly tailored, and here it is. Now, we say that Trump claims that we're acting in concert with Biden, but defendant offers no factual basis for this assertion, and there is none. The claim is a lie. We're not working with Biden. Yes, you are. Who wrote this? Did Colangelo write this? Who wrote this? Colangelo wrote it! Okay, Matthew Colangelo wrote this stupid motion. You literally came from Biden's office, Matt jerk. There's no evidence we're working for Biden. You literally left the DOJ like last year, a-hole. All right, so this guy, the bravado, unbelievable. There's no evidence. This claim is a lie. The guy who freaking worked for Joe is writing this motion. Okay. Now, Trump also asserts that Bragg's efforts to delay filing an opposition are shameful and says that the motion for delay was to defer the court's consideration. But Trump never objected to the briefing schedule, and as explained in our letter, the people are simply proposing adopting the existing schedule. And so these knowing falsehoods are just the latest examples of Trump's patent disrespect for you, for the administration of justice. Give me a break. Similarly, irresponsible attacks by Trump led this court to issue the orders restricting Trump's statements and to find him in contempt 10 times. So as Trump's conduct makes clear, writes Biden's literal prosecutor, his number 3 from the DOJ, the need to protect participants in this proceeding and to protect the integrity of the criminal justice process from the criminal defendants' attacks remain critically important. So they say the court should keep this gag order in place. They say, so keep the jurors protected. Here, there's no reason to allow Trump to comment on the jurors. So man, they put a lot of work into this. They also say there's no basis for Trump to comment on the family. The court should maintain provision so that he can't talk about the judge's daughter, who's a Democrat operative. The inflammatory remarks from Trump have caused serious problems. In fact, the New York Police Department have logged an increase in threats against Bragg, his family, and the staff, which I guess if they're illegal, if they're actual threats, hopefully they're prosecuting people, since they're the police department and it's already illegal to threaten public officials. So why do you need a gag order? And Trump didn't tell those people to go harass them, okay? So you can't gag Trump because he said something and some other people did something. That's called a heckler's veto. Matt, defendant again falsely claims that the evidence was stale and there's no basis to maintain these restrictions. They also say there was a bomb threat. Oh no. So Trump therefore needs to be gagged because other people think that Bragg's a piece of work. And also, Trump wants to talk about trial witnesses. Why can't he talk about Michael Cohen? Why can't he talk about Stormy Daniels? Now the people say, oh, they agree this no longer needs to be enforced. Finally, Trump seeks so that he can talk about witnesses. The people agree this provision no longer needs to be enforced. Oh, that's good. So maybe Trump can come out and start railing against porn star Daniels and perjurer Cohen. The need for the protection persisted through the trial. Now the jury has delivered the verdict. There is no interest in protecting the witnesses. Good. The relevant balancing interests have shifted. This change does not mean that he has carte blanche to resume his reprehensible practice of publicly attacking individuals. That's free speech, Matt. But there are other protections for them, so they can sue him for defamation, distress, and whatever. So Matthew Colangelo, Biden's prosecutor, says there's no evidence that we're prosecuting Trump here. Give me a break. What? I mean, the gall, this guy. Like, how does he even... Do you think he's laughing? Do you think he's deluded or just evil? Like, which one is it? Do you think he believes what he's doing or he just thinks that he can't recognize it? He's got some cognitive problems. Maybe it's that. I don't know. So anyways, they want more of this. They love what's happening in New York. This weird woman is saying that this is what justice should be. We need a lot more of this. Hold Trump's feet to the fire because the public has an interest in prosecutions now. Where did that right come from? Here is this woman.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? It is a balancing act. I reject this notion, and I hope that people aren't saying this seriously, lock him up as applied to Donald Trump. Well, no. Every criminal defendant is entitled to all of the protections that the Constitution provides.
No, they're not. Trump does not get evidence. Trump does not get the right to confront his accusers. Trump does not get the right to attorney-client privilege. They shatter that. Trump is below the law, okay? Not above it, by design from these people.
Including Donald Trump. So there's that part of the balance.
Don't lecture us like he's...
And then there's this notion of protecting political leaders from the criminal justice system being weaponized, something Republicans are throwing around these days without much basis for it. But we don't want to be that banana republic where the criminal justice system becomes becomes a tool of the White House or a tool of political
We are literally that right now, lady.
people. That, I think, is why prosecutors were right to go slow early on. They were breaking fresh ground. They wanted to ensure that before they investigated a candidate, then a sitting president, they crossed every I and dotted every T. And that was frankly
they wanted
the
to
right
time it with the
decision.
election.
But on the other side of the equation is the way that Donald Trump uses the system against itself. And once it becomes clear that he's abusing the system for delay, to avoid facing courts, then I think the judges and prosecutors have to kick in and do, frankly, what they did in Manhattan. Hold that defendant's feet to the fire, say, as Jack Smith has said in the Washington, D.C. prosecution, you know, the public has a speedy trial right too, and try to get the equation so that everyone's rights, both the defendants and the public's, are respected.
The public has a right, has an interest in a functional justice system. It's not like the Coliseum where we have to race through and get certain people convicted to satiate these people. It's about going through the proper process. And we have something called the presumption of innocence in this country, or we did. And they don't like that. They want more of Mercan prosecution style elimination of opponents. And fortunately, we have somebody in Trump who has the wherewithal and the backing of the American public such that he can weather this attack. Now, here is Alina in the House, and she's going to explain to us why Areola Engoron and his judgeship is such a problem and why he needs to go, because he, of course, is now facing a recusal motion in the civil case for having a weird meeting with some other attorney and evidently being influenced by that attorney in his decision.
No, but misapplying law to fact is very different than what this motion is, and I just want to be really clear for the listeners on what happened here. This attorney, Mr. Bailey, went on TV bragging about the fact that he had spoken with the judge that was sitting on our case, Judge Engoron. The judge had not issued his final decision on this case, and this attorney, who has sued Trump, Sean, more than 6 times, has now gone up to a judge sitting on an active case and spoken to him about the case. That is not allowed. He never notified the parties.
Ethical
not allowed.
rules of New
This
York.
goes way beyond anything else that we already know. And it gave us another reason to say, yet again, you need to step down. You need to take your robe, your code of judicial conduct seriously. As we know and have heard, there's obviously the Office of Attorney Ethics and Judicial Commission looking at this, but we cannot wait any longer for these judges to sit there and make the right decision. So we have to act, and the Trump team's going to continue to push and put the true facts out. We've also subpoenaed the individual, and we're going to look at what their communications were and see how much more corrupt, let me correct myself, this case is from what we already knew.
And that other attorney is a witness, and the question is Judge Engoron a witness? Because obviously he talked to that other attorney. So the attorney will say this happened, and we'll say, well, Engoron, you're next. We're calling you to the stand. We'll see you over here. And so will he give up the case and send that back over to a different judge? We'll see.
This was influenced. If we do find out about it, absolutely there are grounds to vacate the decision for a reversal. Frankly, as we know, this case was a sham to start with. As you said, Bragg has completely dismissed people that were violent on campuses. But when it comes to Trump, you know, we have a different standard. This has to stop. I can tell you in November, I would push President Trump 100% to correct the judicial process and to stop this dual system of justice. It has to. We have to reverse it. The case was a joke to start with, just like every other case against President Trump.
Alina in the House with very astute legal analysis as usual. And I think she's right. Trump, the biggest issue as far as I can tell is the Justice Department. If we do not have a justice system, we do not have a country. And they are wrecking it for their own ends. And once they have it seized, and they have total control of the justice system, and they can just prosecute anybody who challenges and threatens them, we devolve into a one-party state more than we already are. So we're going to continue to cover this, my friends, and we'd love it if you joined us as we do. Thank you so much for subscribing wherever you're watching. Thanks for inviting someone you know or love to come join us. You can send them this video and say, I made you do it, and tell them to come on over here so they can see what's happening in the New York prosecution of Donald Trump. We got another great segment that's being queued up right now for you, and we'd love it if you joined us over there. Check out the segment on Jack Smith and his illegal appointment. We'll see you over there and back here on the next one.